subject transitioning set up well is, as usual, by Stephen, is how can we collaborate effectively as with respect to Ukraine, at least where we can all agree on humanitarian relief. And we have a lot of people that are donating, some with their own philanthropies, some with their time, and we a lot of aid requests. They come into different categories. We've set up WhatsApp groups around them, telecom resources, medical supplies, power generation, and there are great global, NGOs and philanthropies that we all know. The Red Cross is doing its best, but they can only go so far. So, we're the entrepreneurial, agile 361ers, and we've some great little wins have come out of this. And I'm sure that collectively, if we all would just give 15 minutes of time after this, just to think of how we could collaborate. Every day at 7:30, we get together on this Zoom, and we are finding that a number of onboardings, find that sheet here. I think it's, of course, when you want something, it's not exactly, but this is an example of the aid requests that have been onboarded, the philanthropies that have been onboarded. I know it's impossible to see all the detail. We have donor, these are the volunteers, the strategic advisors. And here's what I was looking for. So we have, I'll blow this up. And I'm going to hand it off. There's some people through this trusted relationship chain. John Bellamini was on, introduced me to Paula Schwartz, who's been focusing on refugee issues for a decade. So of course she's well placed both in her network. She just funded a film that was, and she got to know the Ukrainian government officials, and so she's got her entourage. We all have our networks. If we just connect the right people, we can get things done better. So I wanted to today help introduce some new people that we're collaborating with, and then spotlight some philanthropies that have onboarded and some aid requesters, and then direct everyone to our WhatsApp groups and to our 7:30 calls. So that said, actually, I just got a WhatsApp. Mirjana introduced me to a former prime minister of Montenegro who's going to join us, and who's been working with the Chinese lately, to the question that was asked earlier. So maybe with that, I could set the stage over to you, John, Paula, and Marius, to introduce yourselves, and then we'll transition to some showcases and spotlights. Do you want to take it, John, or Paula?
Yeah, I would be happy to take it. I don't know if John would be on standby. So
I'm here, Paula,
yeah.
but I'll be in the background. You're in charge. Let me know what you need. Okay.
Okay.
And
thank you very much.
Are you not able to join on camera, Paula?
I can definitely join on camera. I don't know how I look, to be honest. Can you see me?
Yeah, I see that. I see you've reversed the camera though. We're looking at a frame. There you go.
Mark, we see your presentation, Mark. If you would stop it, and Paula will be more visible.
There we go. Thanks, Marius. Except now you're on mute. There you go. That's still on mute.
Sorry, guys. I have a 6-month-old baby also that I'm taking care of. But yeah, my name is Paula Schwartz. I live at the border between Greece and Turkey. So it's 1,000 meters between Greece and Turkey. And I stumbled into the whole topic of mass migration because the island where I live on was heavily affected. So we used to have 14 boats an hour come with refugees from Syria. And I started to work a lot with companies such as Google and Cisco, and also Bayer as a medical provider because of the refugee crisis that was deriving from Syria. And as Mark mentioned, I had financed a movie in 2019 about human rights abuses, specifically to protect mothers and their children, because there were some UN conventions that were favoring the role of the father more than the role of the mother. And so I presented that that movie, which is also it's being presented soon in the US, and we're actually making a lot of wind with it. I presented that movie in the Parliament of Ukraine, and I met a lot of ministers. I met a lot of wonderful officials, and it so happened that now the crisis struck in Ukraine, and I had the right network to actually act. And John Belluomini and we were active in different crisis regions together, because he is a super connector. He brings me forward in my work. I had just, pushed out a baby, so to say, and he was actually stabilizing me very much in my work, and he connected me to Mark. So we also have a lot of WhatsApp groups. We have a lot of knowledge deriving from refugee camps in Greece, in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Jordan. Of course, right now in Ukraine, there are no refugee camps, but the knowledge that we have gathered in Greece and the region that I just mentioned, we are trying to apply to Ukraine in the region, and it's been actually very, very effective. We do partner with large NGOs like the UN as well, or supranational organizations. And Mariusz, who's also in this call, he has a house in Poland, close to the border between Ukraine and Poland. And his people know exactly what's going on the ground. He physically is now in Berlin, I believe, but he goes there a lot. And so we always try to coordinate international support. Basically from what we've learned, from what is needed. And we use super connectors like John Belluomini to stabilize us further.
And Paula, what I'd say is, it's beyond the connection. You're building what you call decentralized UN, which will be efficient. It's not about ego. It's not about title. It's about getting the job done. And you so impressed me. Well, you have 1,200 people now actively doing this work with you. Is that right?
Well, we're trying to build a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization that functions like a nation. And the idea behind the DAO that I run, it's My Cloud Nation is the name, so the Cloud Nation. And if you go to mycloudnation.com, you will find our website. And essentially, the reason for creating a decentralized nation is to foster peace in all other nations. So we have experts in different fields, in logistics, in healthcare, and education, and they all want to collaborate. They come from all over the world, and they think that this idea of having a decentralized organization that promotes peace around the world is something that should be fostered. And that's where we work together. We have funding because we also have investors in our network. I personally am an investor myself. And we want to change the paradigm of nationalism, because we think if we work together as a global country to manifest peace, then we do what is needed right now.
And I absolutely trust her with my relationships and Mark. And they're going to be, I had my team for the past 2 weeks organizing 10,000 contacts to formally introduce to you that I've made in the last 20 years. And we're going to do this together. I'm going to introduce all of my network to you and 360 to help the people in Ukraine and hopefully prevent this from happening again. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. I think John Lennon, he was sang about it. Imagine all the people living life in peace. And I think what we attempt to do in terms of building a unity of people that promote peace together is something that has been tried in the past. But in the past, people did not have things such as blockchain on such a high level. And frameworks in order to organize decentralized autonomous organizations. We have companies like Airbnb that are global. We have Uber, we have telecommunication companies, and all of them see that there's also a market opportunity if you connect refugees. And right now, like in the last 2 weeks, we had around 2 million people only going from Ukraine to Poland, not to the other countries. So, we have an international need for an international global community that wants to manifest peace rather than to destroy everything. There's also a market behind that. So that's where the argument that we actually go for is feasible. However, we are an NGO, right? So we're here to talk today about humanitarian aid, about how we can help. And so I'm going to pass this back to Mark.
Actually, I'm going to pass it right back to Marius. Maybe you want to add on to that intro before we.
Yeah, to this beautiful intro, I can maybe just add my very personal perspective. So there's like plenty of things flying around, and it's pretty complex. And I'm focusing on that to reduce the complexity in a way that it's going to become actionable. I have contacts with Ukrainians. I'm hosting Ukrainians. I have contact with also people around the Ukrainian government. I'm Polish myself. Grew up in Berlin in a tech world, so I'm connected there in a tech world, but also in Poland, already established connections to big organizations, but also, for example, to the main coordinator of the main hub where all the refugees are landing. So with that, I try to just facilitate information and value flow that the right things gonna deliver it on the right time and the right moment to the right person. Thank you.
So we want to.
But you also, so Mariusz is very closely connected to Starlink. He's bringing the Starlink to communities that don't actually have access to it. And I think Mariusz, you downplay your role a little bit. He has a startup that's running stuff. And
yes, I'm also entrepreneur and have also a startup. I thought let's not the stage here. So I'm winding down the work for my own startup to just help here because I see here is the biggest need right now. But generally what I'm bringing in today is Marcello. He's gonna talk today is my focus right now is more on the, let's say, the technological side of things. So for example, like bringing connectivity to people, but also looking and helping software projects emerge all around to help the people in Ukraine. But this is just maybe too much of, there's a lot of context there. But today is the focus on the connectivity, what we would love to provide to the people.
I'll just want, by trifecta of the intro, we've been doing this, some more have been active every Thursday we get together. We've been honing this. Wartime sometimes accelerates innovation. So we have to like rally and get into the groove here. So we just added on to our forms that feed into these shared sheets. So we've always been asking, what are your interests? What have you established any foundations? Are you supporting them in a specific interest? And then let's focus on Ukraine. These are the urgent items that they need. They need phones, they need connectivity, they need mesh networks. They need medical supplies of all types. They're all specified here in the 10 categories. And they need fuel. We have a lot of people in our system that can help with flying planes and then we have storage, but they need fuel. So it's money, supplies and volunteering. You can specify what you are interested, what you could provide, 1 through 10. And we then connect that up with others. On the relief side, you can make requests. This is all coming from our onboarding or our Ukraine page. But if you have specific requests, again, list it. What are you requesting? Same categories. And we do ask, maybe there's some types of people support that you need that our network can provide. If you have charities that you work with, other contexts, why we should give to you, and vetting, if there anybody that you could mention that helps us know you better that through our relationship chains. SDGs is another thing that our communities identified. You have presentation materials and other, etc. So every day at 7:30, we're looking at these onboardings and trying to find people in our network that want to help. And again, thank you to everybody who's been leaning in to do this. With that, I guess back to you. Well, first, any questions before we let some people present?
Mark, I just want to say to John and Marius and Roberta, unbelievable what you guys are doing. Just thank you. You guys are amazing. Just amazing.
Well, as I told Mark, It's taken me about 10 years to find a group that I feel safe in, that I can trust, and that I can turn my back on and disappear for a week and come back and it's actually gotten better versus a shit show. So you guys are doing awesome. And I'm so grateful to be a part of the group. And thank you, Paula, for also working with us. And, just the work you do is incredible. You are a North Star to me every day. And I hope that my family ends up like you. I'll leave it to that.
So if there are
Thank
any
you.
other questions before we, go ahead.
No, I can only give the compliment back to John. I think he's a marvelous human being, and I'm glad that he's actually working with me. Like, I feel honored. And Mariusz, of course. I mean,
Thank you.
we've been through a lot together. And
These guys are
Congrats.
24/7, even with a six-month-old. I would say my wife would never let me do it, but she is her own, I guess your husband lets you do it.
yeah, we have some people on the ground who are helping with 2-year-old babies, and I have to say that I don't find this the most effective form of aid. Like, I thought about flying down and everything, but it's no use. Why would I do that if I can coordinate things better from afar and keep everyone safe? Some people are also helping at the moment to feel good about themselves, which
We'll take those two. Mariusz, do you want to maybe move over to Marcello? And talk about telecom?
Yes, we can do this. I'm always this process guy, and I would love to just, because we have so many beautiful people in the call, and I prepared a so-called Mentimeter. Maybe some of you know it. We're gonna, with that, capture your comments and questions, and also particularly for each of the projects presented today. Maybe I'm just gonna take a screen share for a moment, and you understand what we're doing here. You said Marcello should start, so we're going to be the telecom thing, and you just then you can sign into the tool by, for example, using your mobile phone and scanning now the QR code, or using the links I've been sharing with you in the chat, and open a new window. And there you can, per project, leave your comments and questions, so we capture your perspectives. But you can also park general questions, and we will then come back eventually now in the session or later on, just to understand where you're standing. And feedback is important. This is also how we are doing the action. So it's not of thin air, the requests you're going to see also right now here. It's based on our view on communication with the people up there, and also based on the experiences which the people had. For example, like Marcello, we're going to now make a presentation, who is experienced in different war zones and knows the problem. And just as he presented it with me a couple of days ago, we worked on the concept. I got today concrete request to this thing, what he's going to present right now from Ukraine, because the people are losing connection and are endangered to then be cut off of our media and just get Russian propaganda. And with that, I'm handing over to Marcello.
Marcello, you 361 firm, the one firm comes from Arthur Anderson, and we share a DNA from Anderson, which I like already.
Hi guys. So I would like to thank Mark for establishing the platform. We met a couple of hours ago. I had dinner with John and Davos in 2020. We were literally sitting next to each other at an astronaut dinner in one of those fancy penthouse places. I've known Paula for many, many years. I represented her previous entity at an event, and then she was inspiration that eventually turned into my TED Talk on bringing connectivity to refugee camps. The whole story is quite interesting, because I ended up on the border between Turkey and Syria with soldiers shooting at me, and 20 minutes later they realized I was not a smuggler, so they're offering me tea to apologize. It was eventful. So I could claim to have been to a few war zones. Sorry, good again, Paula. And I've been working in Marius quite intensely, actually, over the last few weeks. We managed to get a couple of Iridium satellite phones to the Ukrainian government. It was a convoluted but a very successful process. So they are trying to get many more of those units. And just for context here, I think it's important to understand where I'm coming from. I'm focusing on difficult, complex, hard things to do that require technical skills and a massive number of connections in relevant areas. And that are both used for during the war and after the war, right? So the telecommunications element for me falls into this category. Again, for context, my family has been in telecommunications for 100 years. My grandfather was a telegraph operator a century ago. He was a radio pioneer. My dad was an analog TV pioneer. I was a digital TV pioneer, and then I got into massive Wi-Fi networks. So back in 2011-12, I launched a really large network in Belgium with 1 million hotspots. And after that, I created a nonprofit called broadlights.org, which is basically trying to advocate for affordable Wi-Fi in the poorest countries in the world. And that was eventually extended to the refugee case, because of Paula, basically. That's when I got inspired to do that. And the last leg, which is something that I'm sharing here partially, is slums, right? So informal settlements, because I'm originally from Rio, I grew up there. So I was living in a slum for a month just to understand the dynamics, what are the problems that they're trying to solve, and is very applicable to the situation in Ukraine, because you want something that is very cheap, is very flexible, and very sturdy, right? So that resists hard environments. Could be a slum, could be a war zone, not that they are comparable, but there are many elements in common. And I did a very brief presentation that I'd like to share with you. I don't know if I have the presentation superpowers here today. So let me just check if that works. Yeah, can you guys see it?
Yep.
That's great. So this is just like a list of important points, right? So in a war zone, what tends to happen is that the enemy is either destroying stuff or they're just taking it over, which is what happened in cities like
Sorry, Marcelo, can you go into presentation mode? It's when you press zoom, view.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I don't know what you can see there. No, this is Zoom. Is it better now?
You got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
So basically, they'll be destroying stuff, radio towers and all that. So they will be co-opting it and then spewing propaganda left and right. And we want to make sure that we have abilities to counter that. Like one side project that I'm also discussing in Maris is getting wind-up radios that run with electricity. They have a battery, they can be used to charge mobile phones, and they have an LED light, right? So we'll try to smuggle those into the occupied cities so that they can listen to Radio Free Europe and whatever is required. This is midterm. The solution I'm presenting here to you guys today is also related to telecommunications. It is very complex, but it's not necessarily difficult because the solutions are in place. So when the invasion started, I was on my way to Barcelona for the Mobile World Congress, which is the largest event of the year. Luckily, the timing was perfect. I've been there many times, and I spent the whole week meeting senior people who could get stuff done, like decision makers. I identified a company that is listed in New York Stock Exchange. It's called airspan.com. They have acquired a company that does Wi-Fi only called Mimosa. So they're really, really good. They have all the stacks. And I met one of the founders, and he basically told everybody, make this happen, right? So we had a lab in Warsaw set up for 2 solution architectures 2 days later. And first architecture had to be validated, which is basically a 4G LTE network that fits in a backpack, right? So this is a bit of an exaggeration because it's quite heavy. I'm guessing it's around 50 kilos, 100 pounds, but yet it's something that is highly mobile, right? The whole point being the Starlinks that Elon Musk donated, they have power inverters. They can run from a car or a van. Those dishes that you have with the Starlinks, they have 2 steps to function: point to the sky and plug it in, right? And they can be done in either order. So you can very quickly get to a place that becomes dangerous, get the heck out of there, keeping the equipment intact, and you're moving the bubble of communications with you. But the Starlinks have a radius, if you're lucky, of 100 meters, right? So it's a pretty standard Wi-Fi to use at home. So it's very deficient when you're trying to share a very scarce item, in this case, connectivity, with as many people as possible. So my focus was, how can I augment the connectivity benefits of having the Starlinks, which are very, very hard to jam, right? They operate at 20 gigahertz and they jump around frequencies. So it's difficult for the Russians to take it down. And we can have more of those, right? So but we want to make sure that for every Starlink, we have a solution that allows that communication bubble, the little cloud that goes with it, to be as large as possible and as professional and stable as possible. And knowing that once the peace agreement is signed, whatever it looks like, this equipment will be used for the next 10 years, right? This is an amazing return on investment when it comes to making a donation that is already deeply discounted. So the airspan management is giving it as at least 50% discount. So they're selling it close to costs. They're trying to negotiate that with partner vendors. I mean, we mentioned Cisco in the call before today. There are a few others like Rukus. They do professional stuff in stadia, airports, and all that. And the beauty of having the funding for this pilot is that we'll be able then to go to the big players like Cisco, Ericsson, and the big operators around the world saying, do you have stuff that you're not using anymore in a warehouse that we can use? We have proven that it works in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are giving us very specific feedback. These are KPIs that we're trying to follow. And this scales like crazy, right? You could get thousands of repeaters coming from all around the world. I mean, Australia could send a shipment if they have stuff in a warehouse they're not going to use anymore, right? So this is really the focus. I know that we don't have much time. There are two solutions. The first one, which is technologically very complex, but doable. We have fully integrated that in a Warsaw lab, is a 4G network. Literally, it's a mobile operator on your backpack, right? So this is pretty much AT&T, but running out of a laptop. There's a radio, the transceiver that connects around 250 to 300 people. There are bigger ones. And we can get donations in the shape of SIM cards that will give to emergency services, right? So you have this little bubble, you give that to the fireman, you give that to the civil defense, you give that to the police so that they are always connected in that space. If the situation in the war gets too hot, they just move back and the connectivity comes with them, right? The Starlink will be coming and this 4G cloud. Another one, which is potentially cheaper, is to do more or less the same, but having a Wi-Fi mesh with professional equipment, right? This could cost just as much as the 4G LTE equipment, but it does not require the SIM cards. And you can choose how many mesh units you want, right? Of course, the more mesh points you have, the bigger the coverage you're going to have. Any questions so far?
I want to keep mindful of time because I want to have a few other people present. Marcelo, maybe you can just sort of take a couple more minutes and then we'll or any questions to your point. If we have questions on so far, welcome those.
Yeah, I don't see any questions so far parked in Mentimeter.
I have a question, Mark, Marcelo, just a quick question for you. I mean, I'd love to talk to you offline, but I want to be able to think through either through Cisco contacts, right, or through very large companies, enterprise companies like the Shells of the world, Microsofts of the world, right? These are companies who get rid of equipment, you know, every year, right? It's sitting in storage closets and of what you're looking for, right? There's an opportunity for us to go directly to them and ask for that, or to go through Cisco to put a request out to all of their big, large enterprise customers, because these companies are switching out equipment, you know, every year. Something that I think we could look into and help with that. Yeah,
that's definitely the spirit. So I had a meeting with the GSMA Forum leadership. So the other guys organizing the Mobile World Congress, and they are happy to introduce me to the operators. So if you have connections with companies that use a lot of telecommunications equipment, which is basically Wi-Fi ruggedized to work outside, we can connect with that, right? So I just want to make sure that we have enough funding to test in the field the 4G solution, the Wi-Fi mesh solution, to understand what is the need, the problem we're trying to solve, and then we can go to the bigger players saying, look, this works, we just need to scale. And it doesn't have to be money, it could be equipment, right? And try to get, of course, people to help us with the integration of all that.
And Marcelo, if someone wanted to give money, do you have a particular site they go to? Is there any, is there a US charitable organization associated with this for tax deductibility or otherwise? Or is it just you know, mobile?
Well, I've had a nonprofit based in Switzerland. I am fully accredited with the United Nations because I'm on a board of one of the ECOSOC NGOs. So I can literally get a free room inside the UN to organize an event. And I do have a bank account for Broadlights, but it's not in the US. So we need to find a partner organization for the taxation elements. I would say that the focus right now is not that much money to run the pilot in Ukraine to prove that it works. It's study and solves the right types of problems. And we will find someone who's doing 501c3s related to telecommunications. I have a few names like NetHope, for instance. I met the founder many years ago at Concordia in New York, so I could reach out. So I do have a nonprofit with a bank account, so this is functional. At this point in time, you basically be sending the money to a New York Stock Exchange listed company. Right? They're the ones who will be donating half of the equipment by giving us a 50% discount. And then there is some expenses incurred, and I'm sure we can find solutions for that with fiat or crypto.
This is John. We're happy, our group with Legacy Global is happy to sponsor you. Make sure you take money here in the US, okay?
That's great. Yeah, John, I can catch up later.
Thanks, bye.
Marcello, this is Cam. We are connected some other way. I'm connected to so many people here, but is it possible to do something similar to Helium, where you tokenize and that makes it easy through crypto to get donations? So then you would be acting like Helium. Is that the potential route?
The problem with crypto, I've been in crypto since 2013, right? That's when I got my first Bitcoin. And I've advised governments. I have another nonprofit called cryptoexplorers.org, which is very senior and curated. So the issue with crypto is trust, right? So people need to understand who you are. And I'd much rather have people sending crypto to the Ukrainian government because this has been vetted and validated. And they send the crypto then to pay for whatever needs to be covered. That's more of an operational element. Helium is just too fancy, right? This is really, pedal to the metal. Let's get the connectivity there. The Wi-Fi is going to be localized so that we can make sure that as many people as possible can benefit from that. And then we can add layers of complexity down the line. But yeah, maybe that's a good case for Helium as well.
Listen, is there, not to throw that kind of element out there, but have you thought through, are there any kind of like elements to deal with any potential fraud or bad actors or anything in this, especially once it gets out of your hands, so to speak, into the field?
Well, we'll be giving that to the government, right? So literally they will be the ones. I have connections with all the major Ukrainian operators via my WEF connection. So like Paul, I'm an official member of the World Economic Forum network called Top Link. And we'll basically be talking to young global leaders from the WEF or global shapers. And I've known these people for 5-6 years. So yes, the risk exists, but if you're giving them a sleeping bag, there's a risk that they're going to sell that instead of following through with the donation. With a highly complex telecommunications equipment, very unlikely, right? So this literally is a communication bubble that will go to a place that has a Starlink terminal. And there's not much more that you can do with that. So the users are quite limited, and we can probably switch it off by identifying the bad player. So we do have an eject button if people misbehave, but that's very unlikely considering what kind of items we're talking about.
I'm going to present just for a moment. I'll give right back, but just what we do in our form, we ask you to provide, context of your past contributors. And I think you pointed out, some of it's confidential. You've got, you address that point as we go forward. And of course, we know you through the trusted relationship chain, which I think is ultimately the most critical. So let me pass it back to you.
Yeah. Just maybe one point is, Marcello, can you say what is the current ask for the pilot you want to roll out with Warsaw, and like what is the ask and what is the time frame for that?
Yeah.
If I could just share again, because I'm blocked from sharing.
Yep, sorry, go.
So basically, I have a few slides just to give an idea of what this looks like, and then we get to the ask. So this is the first slide. I think we covered everything. Let me know if you have any questions related to that. So I'm happy to share the presentation. This is a project that I had in Rio, right? In the Olympic Games, I was living in the slum trying to understand how can you provide connectivity to people who have no rights to be there? They literally invaded the place, and it's a social reality you have to confront. And the solution is actually quite similar, right? So you have the green circle is where you have fiber connectivity. In our case, is Starlink, and you can have those meshes, basically devices that talk to one another, creating this cloud cover. And this is very well understood, has been deployed for the last 10 years, and is fairly affordable, and above all, is scalable, right? So we can start with, to get back to the financing point. If you have the Wi-Fi solution, you can literally just have the professional equipment providing one single radius bubble, and when the need comes down the line, you can add more of those, right, locally. The other thing that is worth sharing is that this is what a Brazilian slum looks like, a beautiful one with a gorgeous view of the ocean, amazing sunsets. So you see the yellow bubbles, they're point-to-point connections, right? So you can have the fiber, or Starlink in our case, then being beamed with the professional equipment to a bubble that is, pretty far away, like 500 meters should be doable, and there is equipment that will go even further, like a point-to-point line of sight microwave, but then it gets really expensive. So those bubbles will be basically what the Ukrainians decide to do. If they say, well, we have a Starlink at the Ministry of Telecommunications, and the Ministry of Agriculture just loses the connectivity, we just give them the other side, like a CPE, a customer premises device, which is a standard name, and they'll be able to benefit from the same connection, right? So this is basically to share something that is a business case, and I worked on this for a long time. Never really happened, but it can still happen in the future. And this is what the vendor proposed, right? So that's what Airspan created, something that fits in a car. In fact, could be the backpack solution, especially for the hotter zones. You have a radio, you have this EPC, which is something that can run on a laptop. You're connecting with the Starlink, and then you have a radius of up to 3 kilometers. What is that? Around 2 miles, depending on the topography, right? So this is quite expensive. It's around 20,000. And they have 5 units ready to deploy. Now, the other solution, which is Wi-Fi, is pretty much the same thing. Satellite Starlink, which doesn't have to be Starlink, would be a traditional satellite with those big dishes, like a 1 yard and a bit, that are very visible. And they connect to a main device, which is your transceiver, and that connects with lots of other Wi-Fi repeaters that have been ruggedized to operate also outdoors. And this one kind of starts at 4 or 5K, right? But if you want to have the maximum, which is around 16 connections, it costs the same, right? It will be 20,000. So my suggestion is to try to fund the 4G solution. I can ask for donated SIM cards, which is something I wanted to do with the refugees, by the way. When I discussed with Paul about Samos, I had access to 20,000 SIM cards that had been misprinted. As in, they're literally useless to the operator because they could not give something with a typo to the customers, but for the refugees, fantastic, right? And around that time, the EU got into a deal with
Marcelo,
Turkey.
we have to talk about not just telecom, but medical and power and a few other things, but
final slide. Yeah. So this is basically tech stuff. This is coming from the vendor. 30K is the LTE. I think you can do for less than that, and a number of connected users. So we have this from people who have been doing this for 15 years. These are my contact details if you'd like to connect and ask me more questions. So thank you so much for your time.
And we have a telecom channel if you want to join this discussion and yet provide your details directly, Marcelo. So Marius, back to you.
I'm gonna share this channel again. Yeah.
All right. So I can share that with you, Marius. We can discuss offline.
Yeah.
In fact, if people want to stick around, we can create breakout rooms and keep it going and have more specific discussions. Marius, should we hit medical? You're on mute. And
so there was no contribution so far in the questions, but you can use the tool to just park your questions and comments. The Mentimeter, as I shared the link, and now it's on a medical supplies first aid kit right now. So the stage is yours, Bob.
Great, thank you, Marius. Thank you, everybody. For those that I haven't met, my name is Bob Otter. I'm the founder and CEO of Citizen Aid. My background is in public safety. I spent 27 years in fire and EMS as a paramedic and firefighter. Last 15 years as an incident commander, specializing in complex incidents, particularly in what we're seeing over in this country, an active shooter, active aggressor, and how we mitigate those scenarios and how we most importantly get to the injured people as quickly as possible, because we know that in under 4 minutes, someone can die from a life-threatening bleed. So after years and years of doing that, realized that the only way we can save more lives is to empower the public to save lives before we get there as first responders. So I created the program CitizenAid about 3.5 years ago, and basically put it in a three-pronged approach that is in front of the public. One is a free life safety guide that's a cell phone app. It's been downloaded about 600,000 times across the globe. The second thing is online training for the public. Just is literally emergency medicine for dummies, if you will. We have a number of different courses that we put out there, and we match every single one of those 1-for-1. And we train U.S. school teachers for free. To date, we've trained close to 40,000 U.S. teachers how to save lives in their classrooms free of charge. And then the third program is that we can do all the instruction in the world, but we know that if you don't have optimized medical equipment and step-by-step instructions on how to use it, they're not going to do a lot of good. So we created public treatment kits, which are everywhere from international airports to professional sports stadiums like Soldier Field. We're in about 7,500 classrooms, K through 12 classrooms, and banks, restaurants, public buildings, and the like. So as the scenario in Ukraine started to unfold, and it became very clear the dialogue was the citizens being empowered to fight the war and to save their land, it also became very clear their medical infrastructure was failing. So we had a turnkey solution in CitizenAid that we could immediately help. So we made our app available in the Ukraine. We translated all of our online training into Ukrainian, and we're working through Marius and Paula and their teams to get that training as widely as possible throughout the country. And then we have public treatment kits, like I said, that are designed with tourniquets and pressure dressings and specialized bandages, but more importantly, step-by-step instructions. So someone who's never held that equipment can use it effectively. And so we are now working with the 361 team to get those kits in country as quickly as possible. We have someone who's on this call, Mary, has set up a 501c3 nonprofit here in the United States. We've had numerous donors to CitizenAid to try and to attempt to get our kits over there. And I'm working with Mary and her 501c3 to get our GoFundMe accounts funneled through her. And then we're going to get kits shipped this week with that training attached to it. So thank you, Mark, for sharing that. About 4 slides, which I'll put into the chat here in a second after there are any questions that sort of explain what we do, kind of where we are, how you may have seen us in the United States with some of the press we've gotten over the last couple of years and through the AP and People magazine and the like. And then sort of the ask of what it takes to do what we're doing. Our cost to get these kits built is about roughly $45 a kit. And we have a pallet of about 1,200 of them that we put aside that we can get there. But it costs a lot of money. Unfortunately, with the war going on, the products that are needed in these kits are in high demand. So we're lining up more pallets to go, but we're going to need some funding to do that. So Mark and his team have been invaluable in putting us and connecting us to groups like yourselves, and we're excited to save lives. But these kits are in extremely high demand, like I said, because civilians are being targeted and they don't have the medical infrastructure behind them to treat those injuries. And so getting these kits where they're needed is crucial, and to do it quickly. And I'll open it up to questions. I gave you 4 years worth of work in a couple of minutes, so I'll open up to questions.
Bob, just one remark. The presentation you need to upload it into the channel because you shared a local link. And maybe I would just love to add one thing. One of the refugees I'm having in my house, she had a yoga studio in Kharkiv, and now they transformed it into a training center for first aid. And she told me that in every city there are organization groups for this kind of first aid education. So this is and there are like hundreds of thousands of users. So this is a perfect channel also to distribute this kits and build up the knowledge there and let the people self-organize to use them then in the right moment.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to getting this out there. I'm going to put this out for everyone to see. Any questions?
So besides the GoFund, what would be a game changer for you? Like what's your you have a magic wand in your hand, you got what you need. What is that? Besides the funding, like what is that number one thing that would just dramatically help you?
Well, I think if we could, one of the things we're trying to, John, it's a great question, is our training. We broke this down in the online training into 2 to 4 minute vignettes. We'd love to get that onto Ukrainian television as public service announcements. We've had it translated, and we think that that would be a widespread way we could get the information out there. And then obviously the kits, if we can get those distributed through either Marius's network or the hospitals that Anchor Freight is currently going through, they have public outreach out of those hospitals that they could literally hand these kits out to civilians so they have it at the ready.
Okay, just put that in writing and send it to me and Paula, and we'll get back to you. Thanks.
I have one more feedback point, Bob, because in the Syrian refugee crisis, we had Google copy a couple of projects. Now, Mark, sorry, I know that your wife works for Google, and I'm not trying to speak against Google here. The larger telco companies or networking companies or internet companies, sometimes they're looking for ways to look beneficial in this crisis. And it seems like you are organizing know-how in a very useful way. So I know that you're also patenting your product, or like you're trademarking it at least. And that's exactly the way that I think you should go, because in the refugee crisis deriving from Syria, we did have the problem of grassroots NGOs creating things, and then especially Google, unfortunately, was very prominent in duplicating ideas. So
thank you, Paul. It's hard to imagine that, all of us trying to row forward, that we'd have someone like Google pushing and potentially creating a disruptor. But yes, thank you for the heads up. And
well,
and
it's
hopefully we'll
also,
run into that.
I mean, if you think about like companies such as Bayer, they have they're not very strong in the telemedicine field. They have fallen in their stock price, and for them you would be either, I mean, I can make a connection with them if you want, with Bayer, but they would probably use you in order to lift their stock price. So I think their money is very easy to be gotten because, for example, Bayer also merged with Monsanto, right? And they've had a very, very negative image ever since, and they have not been useful in the COVID crisis. So I think if you want, like, I used to scout grassroots innovation for Bayer in the Syrian refugee crisis, and they had a 80 million budget per year annually, which was very big because Bayer wanted to do a lot of impact-oriented stuff. So if you would want me to present this to Bayer, I think it would be a really good opportunity. But on the contrary, we had refugee info. I think still, if you put refugee info into Google, you will get to that Google site. And so Google had put one person as an engineer to coordinate what is happening on the borders between Europe and Asia. And so they were showing what is happening. We had 15 million users monthly on our side that was doing the same. And Google had sort of replicated that website. They had put an engineer there. Now that is not being fed anymore. And yeah, it's I guess with Ukraine it's a little bit different than with the Syrian refugee crisis, because back then companies also wanted to help in order to seem legitimate, but now there's a lot of interests in the playing field. But I do think that you could leverage Bayer with what you're doing, simply because of what I said. COVID brought them down.
Guys, let's take the business talk offline because.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be to approach Kyivstar because it's one of the largest telecom holdings in Ukraine. And if you agree with this, Bob, I will try to make to get to them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Simon. I will, I'm going to send you those links as soon as they're prepared for me today, and we'll talk about them. Thank you so much.
And Simon,
Okay.
maybe Kyivstar used to be my client when I was at Arthur Anderson. Maybe they could also help with the telecom side of, that was the first presentation I think you missed,
Right.
Marcelo Garcia.
With the telecom, listen, I will try to.
Mesh networks. Yeah.
Right. They, in which way, like if Marcello kindly sends me a request to them, I will definitely be able to get to the CEO of the entire holding, and I will talk to him about
And
things.
weren't we dealing with Deutsche Telekom for our 5G event? Maybe that side of the house.
Right, but you know, Kyivstar is right there. They're the largest telecommunication company, and the chairman of the board of Leon is a very close friend, and he's actually in Ukraine, kind of helping to whomever he can help. So
Okay.
I'm sure we'll get a very good reception from them.
Okay, so definitely, Marcello, be in touch with Simon on the telecom side.
Hey, Mark, I gotta hop off. You guys are awesome, and thank you, Paul, and everybody, Simon, and just so grateful to be here. But I gotta go. I'll see you later. Bye.
Great. Thanks, John. So
Thanks.
I was hoping on the power side that Mike Scala would be able to join. He's on the West Coast. Should think he'd be online by now, but so I don't have that presentation at the moment. So if we want to have any other comments or questions on the first two, and again, we meet every day. There are these shared sheets of requests, and then we have to go deeper, like what we're saying now. And maybe what I was suggesting to do, Marcello, and maybe for you, Bob, is to have just a dedicated Zoom just about each project, so that you're not running on top of each other on time. I don't know what you
Hey,
think
Mark,
about-
someone just asked, and I haven't pulled up the Menti yet. So someone asked about how much we need. I put a deck on there
Oh,
that
God.
said,
This is okay. Keep going. Finish your thought. This is like such fate. I just got something. Go ahead.
okay, so anyway, that deck that I just put in the chat has an immediate need for this pallet to get over there now, which is 66,000. And that's 1,200 of the kits all landed in Ukraine cost, based upon the freight carriers that we've gotten. That's 2-day air, and then it's got to get trucked in from either Berlin or Ipswich, England. But that's the final cost, and that's what we would like to get this first batch of supplies over.
Okay, let's definitely do that. I just got a text from my former moot court partner at University of Michigan Law School. He was general counsel for AT&T, and I was literally thinking of him as someone to contribute. So I'm going on the telecom. We'll have a telecom meet up or Zoom. I think let's give it an hour, and let's just get a time tomorrow, the next day, and I'll try to get the telecom crowd. And then on medical, similar for you, Bob. And then we'll have the others. And then again, 7:30, we're here, same Zoom. I know it's early for some, or in the afternoon for others, but and then we will be, probably growing it into some sub communities, and that line up with things that Paul is doing. But any other questions, thoughts, ideas from the group?
Maybe I would like to say that funding is not the ultimate right now. I think the most important thing is to also keep track with what is happening, because things change so quickly. And I think we can all help with international friendships. It seems like Russia is doing a lot of work in order to win over Russians, to say that the current crisis is in the interest of Russian people. And so it's important to speak with your Russian friends. Simon, I'm sure he's doing that all the time. But, to try not to lose people to the war. Also capable entrepreneurs who have possibilities, Russians, who knows how divided they will try to make a stand. And so I think to promote international friendship, that's the most important thing. And to also understand that money is not everything.
Yeah, very good words. I'm actually telling all my friends to leave Russia. And I'm collecting their resumes, and when they're ready, one thing which we probably need to do is to find the portal which matches the skills of the Ukrainian and Russian programmers, and not only programmers. The last news is that the last, I guess, rumor is that over 100,000 programmers left Russia in the past 1 month, and about 50,000 is about to leave. I don't know how people obtain these numbers, but that matches my other, readings where only like a few 100,000 people left Russia who just escaped. And today a very strange rumor came up. Russia has this most famous singer. Her name is Alla Pugacheva, and she, with her family, left for Israel. So supposedly yesterday they announced that her villa is turned into the hospice or orphanage or something like this. So the regime is extremely, if it is so, the regime is very vengeful. The Anglo-American School of Moscow was closed, and I mean, anybody who opens his or her mouth is basically immediately either thrown out of job or put in prison or whatever. So it's really tough for people to voice their opinion other than just go to the barricades. But that's why I'm saying, I'm telling everybody, come here, at least I will be able to organize you some meetings.
But it
And,
seems like also Joe Biden is extremely scared, or the American side is extremely scared of a cyber war with the focus of America, because now that the sanctions started to be in effect, right? They started to be in effect a little bit later than they were implemented. And so
it sounds like he is concerned that we will slip into the World War III, because basic cyber attacks are unpleasant, but if they go after strategic objectives, then it can be considered to be cyber warfare, and then the Article 4 of NATO can be called in, the same as starting the airspace blocking. So that's where the kind of red line is. It's not just cyber war, it's like what kind of targets will be there. So yeah, it's very dramatic, very tough. The Ukrainians so far, they are kind of holding up, and the biggest issue is whether or not they will be able to hold the central Ukraine, because if they cannot, the Russians surrender 40,000 of the Ukrainian troops. So that will be a tremendous blow. Hope it will not happen.
So Marius, you have your hand up, but Tim hasn't spoken
Yes.
yet. Can you let him have a quick?
Yes, please, Tim.
Simon, real quick, are Ukrainian and Russian programmers usually bilingual, and is it second language English?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I may have an idea for you. So let me write it down first.
Right.
Nice.
Thanks.
So, and I just have some maybe commenting words. So I know we can do a lot, but we will not solve anything. But what we can do for sure is to contribute to one of the greatest goods what the Ukrainian people have right now. The morale is high, and it's getting really supplied by knowing that there's this international community willing to help. Voluntaries or big organizations. I got a really direct feedback from people around the government that this gave them strength, especially in the first days of the war, that they knew that there's somebody out there and taking care. So thank you very much for whatever will come.
Which reminds me, Simon, your son's project to try to support kids. We should highlight that and spotlight that.
Yeah, it turns out like I'm calling on everyone. Nobody is speaking up. It's definitely not the first priority. I talked to many people about this here in Europe, in Ukraine.
All right.
Not there.
Well, kids to kids might have a different view.
Yeah. Simon, write me privately on that, because I found a channel in the city chat groups, and there is a kind of for this kind of maybe needs a channel to spread this information.
Okay, that's wonderful. Please let me know. Thank you.
So
And
I'm,
Mark, he is coming back at around 6:30. He will be helping you.
Simon's son is helping us with our sausage making behind the scenes. Thank you. Well, I definitely want to have a dedicated 1 hour on telecom. You know, Marcelo, you can tell us what time you're available. Maybe we aim for tomorrow, Thursday. Same thing with you, Bob. And I've got some ideas of some big, you know, people who, again, it's not money alone, but there are some people that in the telecom world, that's how they made their money, and they could be helpful. And similarly, I think we should do this kind of a showcase. It could be sort of the back half of the 7:30s if new people come along, or we'll dedicate something, and maybe we do a and then next on Thursday, we also have our Philanthropy Impact. So we're going to reach out to everybody who's been active, expressing what their philanthropic interests are, and we'll try to have them connect and refresh those. Even the people who are looking for work, if they're usually we call them strategic advisors. There's talent to volunteer, and there's just talent that I'm available. And of course, I think you had a question, Giannis, about vetting. I think he came and left. The nice thing about a community is it's easier to vet people, or we triage them. Any other comments, thoughts? I love that background you have, Bob. I'm coming to Ohio.
Thought you'd like that.
I'm coming to Ohio soon. And that, Mary, it sounds like maybe you could be helpful to Marcelo as well. Anything else? I haven't seen you, David, for a while. There's Mary.
Yeah, Mark, absolutely. You know, I pinged him on the back channel anyhow, you know, and gave him my information. We've obviously got the ICU Foundation set up. We sit right in that space of infrastructure and logistics, as well as, you know, education, medical, and financial services. So with the mandate we have in place, we're able to take in contributions and give obviously tax deductible donations or tax deductible receipts back. And we are able to purchase goods and services, obviously internationally as well, because it was set up to support underserved communities and refugee camps around the world. So the foundation was set up specifically to do that because of all the work that I've been involved with in the past around that. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we've showcased. We'll take it the next step for Marcelo and Bob. And if others have both projects or interests, you know, go to our Ukraine page, come to our 7:30s, and we'll leave it at that.